Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Here we go.
I'm Sheriff T.K. Waters. This is a critical incident community briefing by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Our agency has prepared this briefing consistent with this administration's commitment to openness and transparency to the public that we serve. Now, the Chief of Professional Standards will deliver the currently available information pertaining to this critical incident.
I'm Chris Brown, the Chief of Professional Standards for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Today we are releasing information regarding an officer-involved shooting that occurred in the 12,000 block of Copper Springs Road in Jacksonville, Florida on April 12, 2023. This information will provide you with a better understanding of what happened, as well as what was known to law enforcement prior to the incident. It is important to remember that when investigating an incident like this, detectives must often interview numerous witnesses, review many hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. With these investigations often taking up to a year or more to complete, we are still at the very early stages of this investigation. Our understanding of this incident may change as additional evidence is collected and reviewed. We do not draw any conclusions regarding whether the officer acted appropriately with respect to the law or JSO policy until all of the facts are known and the investigation is completed. A word of caution. The images and information that are about to be presented may be graphic. When a police officer uses force to arrest someone or to defend against an attack, it can be disturbing and difficult to watch. Your discretion is advised. This officer-involved shooting resulted in the death of Matvey Klimenko. Klimenko was 38 years of age at the time of his death. He was a convicted felon who had served time in Florida State Prison. When this incident occurred, Klimenko was in active violation of his probation for driving under the influence, and a warrant had been issued for his arrest. In 2021, a sibling had been granted an injunction for protection against him. Another family member also sought an injunction for protection against him in the same year. At 12:37 a.m. on April 12, 2023, officers responded to the 12,000 block of Copper Springs Road in response to a kidnapping call. The call detailed that a woman, henceforth referred to as the victim, was being held against her will inside a house. The 911 caller, who was a friend of the victim, reported that the assailant was armed with a knife. Soon after the 911 call was placed, patrol officers arrived on scene and safely extracted the victim from the house through a bathroom window. Once the victim was outside the house, she explained to officers that the residence was her home and that Klimenko, her ex-boyfriend, had broken into the house and held her against her will. She explained that all throughout the previous day, April 11th, Klimenko had been calling and texting her, eventually arriving at her house around 9 p.m. After the victim refused to let him in, Klimenko broke into her garage and then kicked open the door that connected her garage to her home, using such significant force that he dislodged the door and its security bar from their hinges. When the victim told Klimenko to leave and that she was going to call the police, he threatened to slit her throat with a knife that he was carrying. Fearing for her life, but too afraid to call police and risk angering Klimenko, the victim texted her friend and asked him to call 911 on her behalf. The victim elaborated on her history with Klimenko, sharing that they had lived together until 2022, when she ended their relationship due to his violent behavior. The victim stated that after she moved out of the house they had shared, his violent tendencies escalated. She explained that Klimenko repeatedly stalked and harassed her, broke into her home on multiple occasions, and threatened to kill her and her dog. Even though he was a convicted felon and was prohibited from possessing a firearm, the victim explained that Klimenko repeatedly held her at gunpoint and knife point. The victim reported these incidents to law enforcement, and in fact, on the day of the incident, there were 3 pending warrant requests for Klimenko's arrest for charges including aggravated assault, armed burglary, tampering with a witness, battery, and stalking. After the victim was safely outside, police attempted to get Klimenko to exit the victim's home. SWAT officers and crisis negotiators tried for several hours to encourage him to surrender peacefully. Eventually, Klimenko fled from the house into the victim's backyard and ran towards the rear of a neighboring yard. Officers immediately began to pursue him on foot, and Canine Officer McDonald deployed his police service dog, Zeke, to apprehend Klimenko. When officers came within feet of him, they gave him verbal commands to drop the knife he was holding in his right hand. Instead of complying, Klimenko raised his right hand with the knife still in his hand and began a stabbing motion. He can be seen looking up at an officer who was just a few feet away. That officer fired multiple shots at Klimenko, who was struck and killed from his injuries at the scene. The following footage is taken from the body-worn camera outfitted by Officer McDonald, who is the primary canine officer and Zeke's handler. And this footage is taken from the body-worn camera of Officer Reese, who is an assistant canine officer during the apprehension.
All elements be aware the suspect does have a knife in his hand. We're hoping to push the suspect back towards you. Jeez. He's running. He's jumping the fence. He's running. He's running.
Drop the fucking knife! Drop the fucking knife!
I got stop.
Crime scene detectives responded to the shooting scene and found Klimenko's knife underneath his body. The next step in this investigation involves an independent investigation and a review of the actions of the officer by the State Attorney's Office. The State Attorney's Office will decide whether the officer's actions were lawful. After the conclusion of the criminal investigation by the State Attorney's Office, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office will begin an administrative investigation into the officer's action to determine if they were within agency policy. This begins with the convening of a response to resistance review board, in which the officer is compelled to provide testimony about his actions during the incident. The response to resistance review board will then decide whether the officer violated any policy during the incident. The determinations made by this board will be submitted to the sheriff for review and a final decision. As stated earlier, JSO does not draw conclusions about the officer's conduct with regards to the law or our policies until the investigation has been completed. On behalf of Sheriff Waters and the Jacksonville Sheriff.
Okay. So let's go back into this. I don't know where it was in the beginning. Here we go. Great. All right, so this dude was a convicted felon. And he had a warrant out for his arrest. And he had protection orders against him from a couple different family members. So it is very obvious that this guy is not a good guy. They don't specify, what kind of felon he was or anything like that, or, his prior charges that made him like that. I'd say that they're probably things that were either violent or, would be associated with the kind of violent people. Like, I highly seriously doubt that he's a Martha Stewart type of felon, where it's, a white collar kind of felony status. Like, this dude was not cheating the tax codes or anything like that. Like, this dude was doing stuff that was either violent or is in line with violent people. I don't know when his last conviction was, but I will say that it is pretty common, unfortunately, it is pretty common for people to be convicted of something like a felony, and let's say 10 years. A person does a crime, they get final sentenced to 10 years. They don't actually do the full 10 years most of the time. They do a percentage of that time, and then they get to become eligible for parole. And so long as they have not caused any major problems, or no major problems were reported, I think that's a better way to say it. So long as no major problems were reported. Because, trust me, these fucking shitbags, they're causing problems in the prison system. They are. It's just a matter of whether or not a high-ranking person reports that up the chain. And you can have people who are given some leniency against some soft-hearted people who want to wheel and deal and be like, all right, man, I won't report this up the chain if, you be good for me. I'll take care of you. Just be good, all right? Don't cause no more problems on my shift. Unfortunately, that kind of douchebaggery kind of crap happens. And especially if they're a lower level felon who gets to do a work release program where they get sent to a county jail. So just because a person is final sentenced as a state prisoner doesn't mean that they actually spend their entire time in a state prison. There are quite a few state prisoners who are sent to county jails for a work release program, a Class D program, where they get housed in that county jail, but they then go out and work a road crew position where they pick up trash on the side of the road, they mow grass, etc. Well, inside those county jails, you can have the people who are in charge of those programs who really, honestly, should not be in charge of those programs, because they are the type of people who are, if you be good, I won't report this incident up to the state and you lose your good time. Or they just won't press those issues. They'll do an internal disciplinary thing. For example, they'll put them in an observation for 24 hours, but they won't report anything up to the state. And they never lose their good time. So they're getting in trouble, but they're not getting in trouble, if that makes sense. So anyway, like I said, this guy could have potentially been sentenced to a certain amount of time, and then he only had to do a percentage of time before being eligible for parole, or because he had nothing reported against him and he did some work, either in the prison, working in the kitchen, doing janitorial work, etc., or being sent to a county jail and mowing grass, picking up trash, or working in that county jail's kitchen, etc., or completing programs like SAP, Substance Abuse Program, MRT, Moral Recognition Therapy. You complete these classes and you get X amount of time shaved off your sentence. And they're attendance-only type of classes. Like, there's no grueling grading or testing requirements in these classes. Like, you don't have to get a freaking, 4.0 GPA to pass this class or anything like that. It's merely attendance based. So you show up, You're passing the class. How hard is that for a prisoner? Well, how hard is it for a prisoner to show up to a class? Like, what else they got going on? So it's basically, it's a given. Like, they sign up for SAP class, they go to it, they get 90 days or whatever shaved off their sentence, and then so long as, for every month or quarter or whatever, however it's set up in the state, for however long they are good and there's no incidents reported, they get good time. So the 10 years, most do not do 10 years. So I say all that to say that if this dude, it's plausible that had this dude had to have been forced to serve his full sentence, there's a possibility he may not have been out on the streets to be able to do this. But again, I don't know his charge history or anything like that. But it's plausible. And that happens a lot with a lot of these criminals. If they had been forced to serve their actual full sentence, they never would have been out in the streets to do what they did. So this is where society is failing. This is where the legal system is failing society. I don't even want to call it the justice system anymore, because there is no damn justice that goes on. It is a broken legal system. So the legal system out there is complete crap, and it keeps letting these people out and out and out and out and out. Anyway, off that rant, back into the video. So we'll pass up this first part and we'll go up to the second. So we got the little tactical bulldozer here. I'd say this thing was going up to, either breach the garage door or, punch a hole through the window or whatever with this thing, pop the door, whatever, and maybe interject some type of, CS gas or something like that. You can see that they're all wearing masks, so this thing may have been ready to start pumping gas into the house. They're hanging out, and you can start to see what looks like gas coming out. So here he comes out. You will hear a less lethal device being fired. It seems like a 40 millimeter was fired at him. Less lethals can be good, but I think a lot of times there's way too much over dependence on some of these launchers. So many videos out there, people being hit with a 12 gauge beanbag round or being hit with a 40 millimeter baton round, and you don't get the desired effect. They're pain compliance weapons, and if a person's got enough adrenaline, enough drugs, they're not going to feel that. It's not going to have an effect on them. Not a desired effect. Could a pepper ball gun have been a better thing? Potentially. Maybe. I think at least with a pepper ball gun, the hopper on it, you're able to fire very rapidly a bunch of little small impact munitions, and you get a double effect out of that. One, you get the impact, the pain out of it, and then two, once they hit, they burst and release OC powder. So I think that potentially, if this dude had a pepper ball gun, he could have just laid into this guy. I mean, just fucking hose him down with the pepper ball gun, emptied the hopper on him, maybe had a better effect. Because you can see that he only fired one round. We don't even know if he hit him with the damn thing or not. He was only able to fire one round, and then the guy takes off running. So in this kind of context, this kind of scenario, I just don't think that was a very effective, less lethal weapon. I think the pepper ball gun could have been a better tool.
He's running.
A lot of them seem kind of dumbfounded right here at the beginning. They're just like, huh, well, shit, he took off running. They're just standing there like, it's almost like they were taken by surprise, like, oh, shit, we weren't expecting this to happen. Why are they not motivated to take off and go after this guy? I have no idea. But I think it's interesting and kind of funny. The K9 guy, you can see him. He does like a little watch his head. Like he turns and looks at them and he looks back. You can even tell that even he's thinking like, what the fuck, guys?
He's running.
And I guess he's just like, well, I guess we're going to go do police work.
Drop the fucking knife! Drop the fucking knife!
Yeah.
Fucking knife! Drop the fucking knife! Drop the
Well, let's go to slow motion.
fucking knife!
So you can see, knife in hand, he's about to make contact with the dog here.
Fucking knife! Drop the knife! Drop the fucking knife!
So over here on the ground, something falls. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it almost makes me think it's a 40 millimeter impact munition.
Fucking knife!
It just kind of comes out of nowhere and just kind of hits the ground. So it makes me think that someone off to the side or back maybe fired ammunition at him. And then this is what you see after it fell off of him and is rolling on the ground. Other than that, I'm not sure what the heck that thing is. So he fired a total of 6 rounds. Super close range right here. His rifle, you can tell it is equipped with a silencer, so that's why we don't hear very, very loud rifle report. I think that rifles should have silencers on them, on top of having a sling, a weapon-mounted light, and an optic. Silencers, I think, are a necessary piece of equipment because it reduces the loud report of that rifle, and it makes communication easier when you don't have that loud ass rifle being super loud and impeding your ability to hear. And of course, it can also help reduce recoil in the rifle itself, reduce muzzle flash and everything. With muzzle flash during the day, not that big of a deal, but at nighttime, when you are running night vision, it is kind of an important thing. But the reduced noise making communications better, and some reduced recoil making it more accurate. I think they are a necessary piece of equipment for a fighting rifle. Unfortunately, in a lot of places, the only people that you see with silencers in law enforcement are your specialty teams, your SWAT teams, your CRTs, SRTs, whatever the heck they're called. They're most often the ones that have silencers. There are some patrol officers out there at various agencies that are lucky enough to have silencers on their rifles. Some of those officers may just be part of specialty teams, and because they're part of that specialty team, they get to carry their special rifle with them and it has a silencer on it. Or there are some just regular patrol people who are not special in any way and their rifle has a silencer on it. But there's not that many in comparison to the specialty teams running silencers. I think that as time goes on and there is more talks of silencers, more exposure to them, that we will see more agencies utilizing them. And either these agencies are going to be utilizing them more because of their intended benefits, or because they just fucking look cool and it's what all the other big team cool guys are using, and so they'll end up using that as well. And I think that's going on right now with tourniquets to some extent. I remember several years back, and actually, when I say several years back, I mean it's not even that far back. I remember even in the mid 2000s, but even before mid 2000s, going back, 2012-ish, 13-ish or so, tourniquets were not a very common thing, not at all. I felt like I was probably one of the only people carrying a tourniquet on me. If anybody did have a tourniquet, they were most likely carrying it in a trauma bag that was in their vehicle. But you would see some places out there where people were carrying tourniquets on them. I used to carry a cat tourniquet to the front of my duty belt. There was a buckle. There's a buckle on the duty belt, and on each side of the buckle there's a space right there from where the belt, bends back on itself. And I would stuff part of that cat tourniquet in that buckle, and I would have it midline right there. And this was before the cat tourniquet holsters, the Kydex shaped ones, were coming out. I didn't like it there because it flopped around too much. It wasn't in an actual holster or anything. I just had the tourniquet bent in half or whatever, and part of it stuffed in there. So then I started carrying an elastic tourniquet, and I was able to keep that in the pocket. But as time has come on, or has gone on, you start to see more and more places utilizing tourniquets, and you could really see this in the private industry first, in my opinion. In the private industry, or not private industry, but the private sector, with just gun guys, EDC stuff, you would see people EDCing tourniquets. There'd be a TK4 tourniquet, a RATS tourniquet, SWAT T tourniquet, or soft T tourniquet, SWAT tourniquet, or the cat tourniquet. Some variation thereof. Kind of like with red dot sights. So red dot sights in the private sector gained more and more and more and more popularity, started seeing them more and more and more, and then boom, that starts to bleed over into the professional sector. Uniformed law enforcement. You start seeing more and more red dots. Well, same thing with tourniquets. You see all these tourniquets in the private sector, and then so many people are carrying them, they become so popular, you start seeing it bleed over into the law enforcement realm. I think that some people are carrying tourniquets because they want the benefit of a tourniquet. I think some people are carrying them just because they see other people carrying them, and they want to add that stuff and emulate, what the cool guys are doing. Just the same as some people wanting red dots on their pistols. Yeah, they're getting a benefit of it, but they're just putting that damn red dot on that pistol because that's who they see on Instagram that they follow using. They're just copying what other people are doing. And I think that will probably occur, and it probably is occurring in some agencies already when it comes to silencers. They see, X agency here, X agency there using them, fucking cool ass operator look, let's get them. That's kind of the goofy, stupid reason for people choosing to want to get them. But I mean, hey, if that's what's driving them to get them, okay. I'm not down with that part of it, but at least you're getting decent equipment that's going to help people out in the long run. Anyway, enough of that rant. So, silencer right here. He dumps 6 rounds in this guy pretty fast. Now, I'm sure some people would probably be questioning why he fired those last 3 rounds or last 4 rounds. Me personally, I'm not questioning it. As you can see, boom, first round. Even as he's fired 1, 2, 3, the guy still appears to have that knife in his hand. And so if he still has a knife in his hand, he's still a deadly threat. Just because he's going down to the ground does not mean that he's no longer a deadly physical threat. The dog is still in close proximity to him. He could still, as he's laying on his side, stab that dog in the side. Thrust up, stab the dog in the throat. I think that a lot of people don't understand deadly physical force. They don't understand anatomy. And so I think a lot of people base things off of what they see in movies or TV shows. And the TVs and movie shows do not get it right. They don't get it right at all. But that's what most people, I think, base some of their opinions and stuff off of, is what they see in movies and TV shows. Just because a person has been shot a couple times does not mean that they are completely out of the fight. Does not mean that they're wham bam thank you ma'am. Even with rifle. Yes, rifle does have a better capability of rapidly incapacitating a person, but there are people who've been shot a few times with rifle, and they still are a deadly physical threat because you did not hit the right areas to get rapid physical incapacitation. So even though he shot this guy a couple times and he's starting to go down to the ground, it does not mean that he is fully physically incapacitated. This guy could still be a deadly physical threat. So I have no problem whatsoever with him firing as many rounds as he did into this guy and firing them into him as he was falling to the ground and hit the ground. If you seem to have a problem with this guy being shot like he was, then you're one of these people who just doesn't understand anatomy and deadly physical force scenarios. You're a person who is most likely basing your things off what you've seen in movies and television. And you are the type of person who has a problem with force like this being used. You won't ever say anything about the fact that this guy right here was using unlawful deadly physical force. You're very quick to put the blame on the police, but you're not quick at all to put the blame on the person who started it. If this guy did not want to get shot by the police, then guess what? He shouldn't have been armed with a knife. He should have been trying to stab the police dog. This guy brought this shit upon himself. He got himself killed because of his actions. This dude would still be alive if he had just walked out of the house with no weapons and surrendered. He brought this upon himself. File this under fuck around and find out as far as I'm concerned.
Drop the fucking knife! Drop the fucking knife!
Hey, where I got stop.
Detectives responded to the shooting.
Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.